Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? It's kind of nice out here, so I'm kind of enjoying it. All right, I want to talk about a subject today that's something that we like to avoid. We don't want to talk about it. It sometimes is controversial, but the title of the lesson is The Fear of Death. And we know everyone experiences death at least once in their life. Now, that might sound a little ironic, but that's true. And of course, we've heard phrases like death and taxes are the only sure things in life, and you can't take it with you. Or you might hear somebody talking about somebody, it was their time. Well, these are the sort of things that people talk about when we consider the subject of death. And then, of course, probably the number one reason that people despise death is because they cannot control it. And they know it is coming their way. I know of people who have been sick with disease and just longing for death, and it just kept avoiding them. And they drug on and in their pain. And so they were upset that it wouldn't come to them. Others see death as something to be feared, and they try and avoid it if they can. But the point is, nobody's going to avoid the subject of death. Now, as a Christian, we're taught that we do not need to fear death, because we are taught that if we are faithful to God and doing our best to serve Him, we'll be taken to a better place. We'll be invited into His feast that He has prepared for us, and it will be a place of splendor and wonder far beyond anything we can even imagine. And so we look for that. But see, those who are not Christians, who haven't served God, they definitely fear death, because some of them might realize their death begins an eternal destruction and torment that is coming their way. And these people do not believe in God, and so a lot of people who don't believe in God, who don't know about heaven or hell, they just think death is the final act of any life, and thus it brings their pitiful existence into an unknown void, and they don't know what's going to happen. And so I think a lot of times we do not consider our own death as much as we should. It is a very unpopular subject, and we are faced with it when people die, and we lose loved ones, and we have friends who die, and other people that we might know pass away. And sometimes we are faced with that death when the doctor tells you that you have a short time to live. Or maybe you're about to go into surgery and you're wondering if you'll come out of it alive. And so you get kind of reprehensive about that. So, but for a lot of people, they just like to ignore the subject as much as possible. They consider they're going to live a long time, and that's it. However, we're told that's not the case. A lot of times people who die on the freeways and other places have died because, well, they weren't planning on it. It just, some accident happened, or who knows, maybe they had a heart attack or another problem, and that they weren't aware of. So, as a person of faith, and one who believes that he is doing the best to be pleasing to God, that we have to consider that we should not fear death. And I really don't think any true Christians fear death, but we worry about it because there's a lot of things that we don't know. See, it's the fear of the unknown that sometimes gets us. It's like trying to walk around in a dark room that you're not familiar with. You don't know what's going to be there, especially maybe you're down in the basement looking for something, and all of a sudden you start running in cobwebs and stuff like that, and things run across your feet. It's going to be kind of unnerving. So there's questions we might have. I mean, when we die, is it going to be painful? I don't know. Are we going to be aware of what is happening as we die? I don't know. And maybe, as some people say, see that light at the end of the tunnel? I'm not convinced that there is one, and until I actually experience it, I'm not going to know. And so the problem is the answer to all these questions is going to come when that time arrives. And yes, it is coming for you and me and everyone else. See, it is appointed for man, all mankind, to die, and after that, the judgment. Hebrews 9:27 tells us that. Now, another thing that we might consider is even though we may not fear death and what it's going to do for us and transition us into an eternal glory, there's something that we still fear. We fear that maybe we lose control of our bodily functions. A lot of us have started doing that ourselves. We've watched our parents or grandparents come to this point, and they lose their body, the control of their body. They lose their mind and behave in strange ways. And so we have loved ones and close friends who've suffered these various infirmities with old age. And we don't want to be there. We don't want to be there and receive the looks of the tiny children as we shuffle along slowly or exhibit shakes in our hands and our bodies. We're fearful of people mocking us, making fun of us, usually behind our back, but mimicking the way we walk or use our walkers. And we're fearful that people will take advantage of us and steal our money or other possessions, as we hear so much about. I mean, the elderly are definitely a prime target for scammers. And sometimes we are just fearful of embarrassing ourselves. And sometimes we might be afraid to take out our teeth when we want to eat something. And the list goes on and on. And so our best hope is that God will allow us to function with some degree of clarity until our time is up. I think those who just all of a sudden pass away, I mean, they're very blessed to be that way. Whereas we see some people just drag on for years and years, whether they're in a nursing home or some other facility, and they just suffer all the time. And it's not a pretty sight. And that's what scares us more than anything. So our best hope is that God will take us peacefully and quickly, and that's the best we can hope for. But yet if that doesn't happen, we just have to deal with what happens. Another thing to consider when we start talking about death is, what will I leave behind? Okay, well, I'm going to leave behind a body, that's for sure. And I won't have to worry about having pain anymore. I won't have to worry about bodily functions not working properly. And of course, I won't have to worry about my looks either, because I'm not going to have a face. I'm not going to have hair. I'm not going to have eyes, nose, teeth, and all those things. So basically, when we get to heaven, everybody's going to look the same. And so you won't be able to pinpoint somebody, hey, I remember you. You won't be able to do that in heaven, because we're all going to be the same. We're all going to be spiritual. And so there's not going to be any distinction. We're not going to know and recognize people. The only ones that will be different and recognizable are God and Jesus. And then possibly if the 24 elders are sitting on the thrones surrounding them, we might recognize them, but we probably won't be able to put names next to them. But anyway, what else are we going to leave behind? We're not going to leave our body, yes, and so that's got to be taken care of somehow. That's either got to be buried or cremated or put in the ocean or something. You got to get it out, because, as Martha said, after so many days it begins to stink. And we don't want people to be put in an unpleasant situation like that. So we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen to our bodies. But then, what about our things? Here's something else we need to consider. You know, the people that we leave behind, they're the ones going to have to go through our photographs. You know, everybody I know who's ever passed, you start cleaning out their stuff and they have photographs. Lots of photographs. And maybe you might know some of the people, maybe you don't know some of the people. But really, my experience tells me that most of the time, photographs just go in the trash. because it means nothing to them. And then some people have all sorts of trinkets and little things they have on their curio cabinets and stuff like that, which really has really no significant meaning to anybody except the person who has passed. And so most of the time they'll either be donated to some charity or put in a garage sale or just thrown out. And so that happens. That goes for your clothes too. A lot of your clothes, yeah, definitely going straight to the trash. Some of your clothes maybe could be sold and or given to charity. And so what's going to happen to this stuff? You know, the writer in Ecclesiastes, he talked about the question, what happens with our possessions when we die? Well, really, there's not anything we can do about it. I mean, they belong to somebody else now, and that somebody else will do what they want to do with it. They have no control over what happens to the things that we leave behind. And then, of course, another thing we need to consider is when we die, is anybody going to miss me when I'm gone? I mean, that's something definitely we need to consider at times. Is anybody going to miss me when I'm gone? And or are they going to be cheering, singing that song, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead? I mean, we don't know. I mean, they might be cheering and laughing when you're gone, then they might be sorrowful and miss you. But really, will the general population care about our demise? No. The only people who's really going to care if we pass away are those going to be closest to us. And so we just need to consider, what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? Now, this is something we should consider every day of our life. What am I doing that impacts others? That's something that we need to do. Am I following the example of Christ and showing compassion towards others and helping others find the way to heaven? I mean, things like that. Am I assisting people to be the people that God wants them to be? And am I a servant of the Lord? Do I serve the Lord the way I should? I mean, these are questions we need to ask ourselves to get prepared for that time. And so, are you teaching your loved ones and your friends the value of knowing the Lord and serving Him? You might be a member of the church and say, am I doing anything for this church of which I am a member? You know, sometimes you might consider setting off some of your fortune and donating it to the church to help them along, keep going. And maybe have the ability to hire another preacher or finance some preachers in other places, some mission work. Helping others is what you can do with these things. And so it's just like you asked, if I died, would they even care to make an announcement, or would anybody care to come to my funeral if I even choose to have a funeral? And that's really going to be dependent on how close your family is to you. A lot of people, they just sometimes choose to have a memorial service, and some friends might show up, and sometimes a lot of friends might show up. But it's really something to consider. And then ask yourself, have you taken the time to help someone who is struggling with their spirituality? A lot of times we just sit back and let someone figure it out on their own without trying to help them. And we should not be doing that. If we have concern for their soul, we should be helping them. And then another thing to consider, which maybe we don't like, is have you allowed others to fulfill their duty to you? See, if you're getting up in age and somebody says, well, I want to come over and clean your house, wash your dishes, mow your yard, do we let them? Oh, no. I'll get it done whenever I can. No, we should let them. If someone offers to do something for you, let them. If you go into someone's home, they offer to bring you some tea, let them. Whether you drink it or not, that's totally up to you. But, yeah, you need to let them do what they want to do. They want to feel useful, and that's the best way to do it. Let them serve you. And so you have to allow them to do that. And so, like I say, the only people who will be sad when you die are those that really love you and care for you. And the general population, they're just going to be indifferent about it. And so we should reflect on these things and reflect upon our purpose here in this life. Yes, we know from the scriptures the Christian's purpose is to glorify God, and we're to live our life in such a way that will cause others to glorify God. Yes, that is our purpose here in this life, to serve God, to serve our fellow man, and ultimately, yes, to serve ourselves so that we can get to heaven. And so the only way to do that is keep God as your first and highest priority, and God will appreciate that. So plan to do a good job before you die. And consider these thoughts. I know it's not a pleasant subject, but it's something we need to face and we need to think about. And if you need to, talk to your family about it. Okay, what are my wishes when I'm gone? And things like that. Because we don't know when that time is going to be. I mean, we can't wait until the last minute or last hour and say, oh, by the way, I need you to do this, 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 and this. Just think about these things. We don't have to fear death if we're living faithful to the Lord. If we're not living faithful to the Lord, yes, we need to fear death, and that should give us a strong motivational fear that we would want to change our condition before God and have a right relationship with God before we die. So consider these things. We're going to end the lesson now. Y'all have a good day, a blessed day, and think about these things, pray about these things, and make wise decisions as you live your life. So we're going to end it now. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye for now.